And welcome again to Video Match of the Day. This one coming to you from North Sydney Oval, where the local side, the North Sydney Bears, take on the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. An interesting match. Both sides, of course, out of the race for the final five, but the New South Wales Rugby League has selected this game to try out on an experimental basis a number of new rules. I'll explain these very quickly. The most important one, I think, is that if the attacking side gets into the defending team's 22, the tackle count stops. So you see a lot of passing of the ball in the 22. The players know that they can keep throwing it around and no tackle count applies. You'll also see a lot of open play because under these experimental rules, players from both sides must retire 5 metres from the scrum. There'll only be one player marking the man playing the ball. Everyone else must be another 5 metres back. And one of the rules, the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks run onto the rather dusty North Sydney Oval. Probably the most controversial rule they're trying out today is that if a player from the defending side takes a kick from general play on the full in his own in-goal, play will be restarted by a tap kick on the 22-metre line. There's the Cronulla lineup. Some top players among that little lot. Coach Terry Fernley, probably in his last season with the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. And the North Sydney side, captained today by one of their stalwarts, Don McKinnon. One of the players to watch, number 2, Ricky Wolford, flying winger and a great goal kicker, has been one of the finds, in fact, this season for North Sydney. Coach John Hayes. Other players to watch today, and I hope he has a good game, is young Mitchell Cox at 5'8". He's had a terrible year with injury. Here's Ricky Wolford, ready to kick off in this first half, and in the first half, having lost the toss, North's running into a fairly stiff breeze, and you can see the dust on the famous North Sydney paddock, which we're assured will be in much better condition next year. There's the indication of the power of the breeze. Let's have a look at the touch judge's flag. Good kick by Wolford. The bounce beat Cronulla Sutherland, and so the first scrum of the match to pack down about 15 metres out from the Cronulla line. Fed by Wakefield, Mark Wakefield for the Sharks. Remember, you'll see a lot more open play as Cronulla win this ball. Wakefield trying to dodge around the edge of the scrum, caught there by Laurie Spina. And Cronulla pinned down just for the moment about 15-16 metres out from their own line. There's the 22 line, you can see left-hand side of the screen. As Chris Gardner plays that one back, and Cronulla content to use their big men and try and charge up the middle. They're outside their own 22 now. Played away by Steele. Then Steele at the hooker position for the Sharks. Play now is roughly midway between the Cronulla 22 and the halfway line. A long floater over there that's picked out of there beautifully by Walker. Walker looks around, shapes as though he's going to pass, but he saw all his men were covered. Play about 8 metres short of the halfway line, still in the Sharks' territory. A very late kick, got it away. Wolford's dropping back for it, number 2. A little bounce to Stephen Casey, he fumbles it too. Right on his own line, that bounce with a breeze behind it, very tricky. Casey trying to run it out, caught there well by David Hatch and Jansen in over the top. Also into the assist was David Harris. Chris Luckman has ball play out about 15-16 metres. Referee giving a penalty to North Sydney. Cronulla Sutherland had forgotten that business about standing back 5 metres already. Remember that the players must be back 5 metres from the scrum and from the play of the ball. Only one man to mark the man playing the ball. Into the breeze, a good kick. So North with McKinnon just bursting through the Cronulla defence. He's taken beautifully underneath by Wakefield, but he's brought play up now to the halfway line. It was a great charging run by Don McKinnon. North trying to, using this time Errol Hillier, going a little bit across field. Didn't really make that much ground that time. Loose on the ground for the moment, picked up beautifully there by Paul Merlo for the Sharks. He's brought play down about 37-38 metres out from the North Sydney line. Going to ground, David Hatch. Cronulla don't seem to be all that interested in throwing the ball around. They're playing it very safe. Michael Porter bouncing through tackle after tackle, eventually caught there by Hillier and put to ground. Play now about 6 metres short of the North Sydney 22. If Cronulla can cross that line, that the tackle count stops. Being dumped heavily, Jonathan Docking, great tackle by Hillier, and plays still just outside the North 22. Going through hard. Glenn Steele didn't quite make the 22. And of course the tackle count applying, he's hurt too. Glenn Steele. Don McKinnon and standing over him. Hillier was the tackler. one of the Cronulla first aid men out to have a good look at Glenn Steele. He was hit hard, very legitimately, but that's a very hard spot on North Sydney Oval. You can see in the background what remains of the turf, but he's lying on literally bare dirt. North Sydney Oval often being referred to as Concrete Park. And there've been a number of injuries from players just being legitimately tackled and hitting that ground hard. So no score in the opening few minutes of this interesting game. As we say, North and Cronulla both out of the race for the final five, and not a bad crowd, all things considered, at North Sydney. It's a chilly day, but the sun's out, and the North Sydney fans are out in there, some thousands, not a huge crowd, but they're going to enjoy this game. And there are so many people interested in seeing what happens with this game being played under the experimental rules. Steele okay now, on his feet, ready to play this one. Try to charge through with it is Gary Walker, and he's just crossed, and I mean just crossed, the 22-metre line. I'll try to go through with it, Paul Merlot. He'll get up and play this one to David Hatch. Remember now, the tackle count doesn't apply. Hatch trying to bustle his way through, gets it back there to Michael Porter. Porter caught. Coming up the dummy half position, Glenn Steele. Looks around to his left. No one out there, so he'll fling this out to his right. Good move coming up here as Jansen takes it through and then gets it away nicely to Nixon. Nixon is caught. He'll play it to Dean Carney. Not far out now from the North Sydney line. Carney going hard. Good tackle underneath by Jennings. First man to him and puts him down, and over the top, Nigel Tate. Well, the referee John Gocher telling the North Sydney defenders to get off the tackle man. Going through with it, David Hatch. They're so close to that North Sydney line, about 2 metres out, but very outside. Running wide with it. Merlot trying to bustle his way through tackles. In fact, lost about a foot or two going sideways. Loose, and it's dived on by North Sydney, it appeared. Referee coming over to say that all's well. That was a bad pass. Now Cronulla, and this we've noticed in the preceding games, in the third grade won by North Sydney 22-10, and in the reserve grade match won by Cronulla 14-4. A lot of wild passing going on. The players seem to have forgotten that they've got all day, once they've got possession of the opposing team's 22. And you'll see, I'm sure, even in this first grade match, you'll see a lot of wild passing. Wayne Honeywood ready to pass that ball away, but referee Gocher is giving North Sydney a penalty once again. That's the second time against Cronulla for not retiring the 5 metres. Ricky Wolford, powerful kicker of the ball, be looking for the line on the far side into a fairly stiff breeze. That's raised the flag about 32 metres out from the North Sydney line. Tapped by Honeywood. McKinnon. Can he burst through this time? Not quite. Put to ground. Good tackle underneath there by Burlow. North and Cronulla just content in the opening minutes of this match to use their big men and run it up the middle. Dummy that time by Honeywood and gets it away well out wide to Alan Burns. Looked around for a bit of support, nobody there. Into the dummy half once again, Honeywood. You'll also see a lot of running from the dummy half position. Up goes Honeywood. He's only got one man marking him. He's got a lot of time to put on the acceleration and try and do something with it. Casey up from the fullback position, blinking in. Once again to McKinnon. McKinnon beautifully gets that ball away to Alan Burns. McKinnon up to dummy half. Gee, McKinnon's having a great game already. If he's on his form, he could crack this Cronulla defence and set up a lot of tries for the Bears. They like to go out on a winning note today. There's one more match after this. That's the end of the qualifying rounds, if you could put it that way, for the 1984 Premiership, and we move into the semi-finals. Errol Hillier now. They're inside the Cronulla 22. I want to see if they can just contain themselves and don't throw the ball just for the sake of throwing it. Brockle into dummy half, North Sydney centre. Getting it out nicely to Jennings, and Jennings in turn gets it away to McKinnon, then back inside to Cox. Cox bustling for the line. He's dragged down about 2 metres short. Near the Cronulla post you're looking at. Out to halfback Spina. Spina dodging, looks for the line. Oh, he threw a bad pass. I think North have just managed to get onto that one. I think also it could have been touched by a Cronulla player, but the referee didn't signal that. Cox gets a long pass out there, finds McKinnon. Props goes the other side and caught by Paul Miller. We'll play it to Honeywood. They've lost a little bit of ground. McKinnon, I think, a little bit shaken up in that tackle as well. Played away by Honeywood. No, he's dropped it, goes back, but the referee calls for the knock-on. And that's the sort of thing we've been seeing in the 2 preceding games. Players hurrying to get rid of the ball instead of just taking their time and looking for the gaps. Mark Wakefield feeding this one for the Sharks. It's a North Sydney ball, but the referee didn't like that. Blew his whistle for it to go in. It didn't quite get into the tunnel, so Wakefield tries again. Good steady scrum and a good open tunnel there, although there was. Another Cronulla ball played away by Wakefield. Now Cronulla could do well, I think, to kick from these positions because they've got a stiff breeze behind them. Carney was the man who tried to bustle his way through, unmarked, and gets a nice pass away there to fullback Docking. Docking's caught and plays up towards the halfway line, about 3 or 4 metres short. Played away by Hatch inside, and then finding front row prop Paul Merlot coming through. Good tackle underneath by Dunbar. Out to the winger Tony Armstrong, also the Cronulla Sharks goal kicker, and almost into touch, but not quite. Did a good job to stay on the field of play, playing it to Chris Gardner. Gardner is caught there by Walford and wrestled down and play about 7 metres short of the North Sydney 22. Here comes the kick from Wakefield. Racing back for it is Stephen Casey. Takes it nicely, about 6 metres out from his own line. Tried to get away from Gary Walker, but chased across and then pushed back. Playing it to Brockwell, coming in from the centres to the dummy half position. Once again, the dummy half running, you'll see a lot of this. Now, whether the rules are working, they're really aimed at trying to open up the play. Certainly nothing opened up there for Ricky Walford, faced with 3, to count them, 3 Cronulla tacklers, and just nothing you could do about that. Good kick that won't find the line. Dropping back for Docking. Waits for that to bounce because the breeze is playing havoc with this ball today. It's it away here to Tony Armstrong. Caught. He'll play this one centre field on the halfway line. Now, some of these Cronulla players most definitely not back 5 metres from the play of the ball, but I think the referee Gocher is allowing a little bit of latitude because it's the first time any of these players have tried to play under the experimental rules. Dean Carney was the last man to go charging through Wakefield. To Walker. Walker tries to open up the gaps down the centre. He eventually found Porter. Oh, straight down the middle goes Gary Walker. Well taken by Nigel Tate. Last tackle coming up against Cronulla. They're just outside the North Sydney 22. Halfback Wakefield did not make the 22, says the referee, but a penalty in any case is going to Cronulla. Offside play by North Sydney, all dribbling up inside the 5, so this penalty awarded virtually on the North Sydney 22, and the ball being tossed across to Tony Armstrong. He'll have a shot for goal from there. The breeze will be, which has dropped a little bit, will be slightly from left to right across the flight of the ball, but he's very close, just inside the North Sydney 22, and if Tony Armstrong can put this over, it'll give you an idea of the distance. Not far at all. It's just the tricky breeze that could give him a little bit of difficulty. In fact, he's almost lining this one up in line with the right-hand upright. A little bit perhaps to the right of that. But he's a great kicker, Tony Armstrong, currently second on the leading point score table for the 1984 season. Former Canterbury Bankstown player. And he's had a great year, very reliable player and an excellent kicker. Here he comes, Tony Armstrong. It's hit the post but bounced through. So first blood to Cronulla Sutherland. Penalty goal kicked by Tony Armstrong. Cronulla 2, North Sydney 0. Terry Fernley from the Cronulla camp looks fairly happy with that. 2 points doesn't mean a great deal at this early stage, but you don't see Terry Fernley smiling very often, so that's something to put on file for the future. Kick-off for North by Ricky Walford. Certainly get some distance into that. Remember, he's kicking into the breeze. Return kick with the wind behind it. Casey charging across for it. Just lets that stop. He wasn't going to take any risks. Kicks infield. I don't know why. It's taken on the full there by Docking. Docking sets sail for the halfway line. Gets around one tackler, still going. Chased here by Errol Hillier, but in fact getting to him first of all was Cox. Ooh, heavy hit that time by Errol Hillier. Last tackle coming in. Oh, the referee signaling that that's been touched, so it goes on. Charging forward, David Hatch. Coming to dummy half. Glenn Steele for Cronulla gets it nicely to Paul Merlo. Looks for the gap, also looks for a runner. Nobody there. Yes, there is. Finally spots one out wide, and it comes across to Gary Walker. Just scrambling towards the line. He's about 5 metres short. A little bit of lack of defence there by North Sydney. They're letting these big men go through too often. Charging for the line, Michael Porter. Put down about 1 foot away from the Bears line. Lost the ball in the tackle. No, the referee he's giving the try. It is a try by Michael Porter. I thought he'd almost bounced that ball as he got near the line, but in fact I also thought he was short, but not so, says referee Gocher. Cronulla happy they've got the first try of the game. Let's have a look at that one again. Porter is wearing the number 13 jumper and the headgear. And here it comes. Now he's going hard for the line. He bounces through that one tackle of Dunbar and just rolled over the line, didn't lose the ball. He was surrounded as we come back live there by some of those North Sydney players. It was a bit difficult to see whether he got it down cleanly. Terry Fernley not smiling, but he should be. That's 4 points for Cronulla. And with the kick, or the attempt at conversion to come from Tony Armstrong, Cronulla off to a flying start and leading by 6-0. Now this one is just a metre at the very outside away from the spot he landed that last goal. He's about 5-6 metres to the right of the North Sydney posts. Taking his time, and that breeze has dropped considerably. Best to do is keep it reasonably low and aim for the centre, and he's there. Tony Armstrong steadies himself. Well judged kick straight between the posts. Another 2 points to Tony Armstrong and another 2 points to Cronulla. Takes the scoreline along to Cronulla 8, North Sydney 0. Oh, Walford trotting back with this ball, ready to kick off from the halfway line. North's just trying a little bit too hard at the moment. Now that's a long driving one by Walford. One long kick, remember he's still kicking to that breeze. And Cronulla obviously under instructions to kick back. Bounced over the head of Casey and the breeze carrying it right down to within about 10-11 metres of the North Sydney line. This is Casey. Had no support there and had to just take it out as far as he could. He was caught by Merlo. Cox tries to, Spina I should say, trying to step out of a tackle, and no way he could do that. Nigel Tate. Play now is about midway between the North 22 and the halfway line. North still trying to work out what they can do about cracking this Cronulla defence. Nice play back of the ball there by McKinnon and found Honeywood. And he in turn got rid of the ball beautifully. But North inclined just to continually try and go down the centre. Jennings to play it to Honeywood. They're down 8 points, but it's early days. They can easily pick up from there. Another penalty again for the Cronulla players creeping up inside the 5-metre line to North Sydney. And that relieves the pressure. They will throw the ball now to Ricky Walford to look for the line on the hillside. Walford, once he gets the ball, keep your eye on him. A most electrifying runner and an extremely handy kicker for North Sydney. Now, North are back inside the Cronulla half. This is Chris Luckman in from the wing. That's the 22 line. Remember, once they get inside the Cronulla 22 line, the tackle count stops, and here goes McKinnon deep inside the 22, feeds it back beautifully. It'll come to his fullback Casey, and Casey will score for North Sydney. Oh, nice try by North Sydney. Beautifully set up by Don McKinnon. We'll look at that one again and just watch for big Don McKinnon, the North Sydney skipper, number 11. Just watch how he executes this beautifully. Here's Luckman in from the wing. He's caught. Tackled there by Howard Jansen. Gets up and plays it to Honeywood. Watch for McKinnon, number 11. Here he comes out wide. Crashes through a gap. Beautiful inside pass there that eventually finds its way to fullback Steve Casey over for an easy try as we come back live, and Ricky Walford to try and convert that one from just inside the Cronulla 22, a long way out. He's only 6 or 7 metres in from touch, and that's an acutely angled kick. He could take that ball back as far as he liked, but he's obviously decided that'll do. He's satisfied with the angle, and the breeze will be blowing very much from across the flight of this ball, so he'll have to steer it a little bit left, and he'll also need a lot of height. So Ricky Walford with his first attempt at a goal kick in this game from just inside the Cronulla 22. Strikes it well. It's high and it's flagged away. It's sailed across the face of the goalpost. No points, but North at least are on the board. Cronulla 8, North Sydney 4. Now from the halfway line, remember Cronulla have the breeze behind them, so they can get a lot of distance. And there's a big bomber that goes straight to the waiting arms of Chris Luckman, left winger for North Sydney. Almost gets through their tackle, thought about throwing a pass, then thought better of it. Play is just inside the North Sydney 22. Trying to barge his way through Gary Dunbar. North obviously have got their tails up a little bit now. They know that if they can set up McKinnon's going to burst through that, at least the first line of the Cronulla defence. And there's any amount of willing runners to come off him. Put to ground Wayne Honeywood. Will play it to Alan Burns. In fact, has lost the ball, reefed out of his arms, he says. Referee says no, it wasn't. We'll have a scrum set down here about centre field and about 30 metres out from the North Sydney line. Fed by Wakefield for Cronulla, and that's another North Sydney ball. Spina around the edge of the ruck. Nice little pass here to Cox. Cox is off. He's been chased, and he had no chance of swinging around and getting rid of that, but at least he's brought play inside the Cronulla half. Out to Spina going wide, gets his pass away. It'll be Honeywood, the dummy half, from about 3 metres inside the... Here's Walford. Walford can't quite get away, gets an inside pass beautifully there to Tate. Tate's trying to brush off one tackle. That ball seemed to come off the knee of Errol Hillier. It's bounced out over the touch-in goal line. And what could have been a promising move there is broken down. The referee saying that was a knock-on. I thought it came off Hillier's leg as he was racing forward to try and get his hands to the ball, but never mind. Scrum just to be placed down about 18 metres out from the Cronulla line. Finally, they win that scrum. This is Greg Nixon, the skipper of the Sharks, trying to get that ball out of the 22 and out of the danger area. Out to Dean Carney, caught. Got a couple of players outside him. The North Sydney defence is coming up like a flash. Nigel Tate, number 4, was trying to get around and take that tackle for North Sydney, but eventually the tackler was Simon Brockwell. Again, the dummy half runs, and yet again the dummy half making a good 10-12 metres. Whether that's a good rule or not, I don't know. The players have to be back in defence 5 metres. There's only one marker, so the dummy half inclined to run a lot. Bad pass, but it's picked up beautifully by Walker. Walker with a basketball lob out there that nobody can handle. Scooped up by Armstrong. Armstrong looks for a gap down the middle. It wasn't there. Caught beautifully by Simon Brockwell. Dean Carney, the kick ahead now. Unless the bounce is bad. Oh, Casey's beaten by the bounce again. He couldn't do much with it at all. He's about 8 metres out from his own line as he claps on the pace, looks for the 22 line, brushes off the attempted tackle by David Hatch. Has brought play out a good 32 metres. That's a good run by North Sydney fullback Stephen Casey. Loose on the ground. Now that was Chris Luckman who couldn't handle it. The referee calling for the knock on. North regained, but the referee Gocher was right on the spot. So we'll have a scrum pack down midway between the North 22 and the halfway line, with Cronulla leading by 8 points to 4. Wakefield in for Cronulla. Waits for it to come out. Let's see what Cronulla have got up their sleeves. Here's the fullback docking. Oh, now he just got a little cup over the top of the head there by Burns. I don't think really the referee's going to have much to say about that, or unless he's going for the intent. It was Gary Dunbar who, I beg your pardon, was Alan Burns who threw what appeared to be a rather high tackle. He's off for 10 minutes. Alan Burns off for 10 minutes, set off by referee Gocher, and obviously being told that even if it did no damage to young Docking, that at least the intent was there. We'll see what did happen. Make up your own minds. Here he goes. Now watch for this this arm. Now look, that really just brushed him on the top of the on the hair, really. But it's resulted in Burns. You saw it for yourself, being sent off for 10 minutes, and Cronulla being awarded a penalty from which Tony Armstrong quite easily could add another 2 points. I don't know. I thought perhaps the referee was a shade too harsh on Alan Burns. Tony Armstrong has landed 2 already, and he seems to always get them from almost the same position and always the same angle, just to the right of the North Sydney post. Only a small fella, Tony Armstrong, but he's a great kicker of the ball. And straight between the posts again. So North Sydney simply cannot afford to give any penalties away. Cronulla now go to a lead of, it should be 10 points to 4 over North Sydney. As our score, Cronulla 10, North Sydney 4, and Tony Armstrong with his 6 points really now looks as though he could easily become the leading point scorer for 1984. He had 152 points for this match. He's already landed another 3 goals for 6 points, so he's on 158 points, which I think should put him ahead of Steve Gearin of St George. Now Cronulla pinned inside their own half, just outside their own 22. That North Sydney defence getting up terribly quickly, and the referee is keeping an eagle eye on those players and making sure they're back the 5 metres. But the North boys seem to be getting to the Cronulla ball carriers terribly quickly, so they must be right on the borderline. Oh, now what could you do with a kick like that? Trying to cover it was Graham Jennings, but with the breeze behind that ball, it's starting to bounce in peculiar directions, and a sport play now down about 32 metres out from the North Sydney line. It'll be Spina to feed for North Sydney. Referee giving instructions about getting back that 5 metres, everyone away from the scrum. North Sydney ball gets it to Walford. Walford spots the gap. He's stopped down the middle. He's got a couple of players chasing him. Veers wide, gets it away nicely through the hands of Tate, out to Chris Luckman, going hard for the line. I think he's going to score. Luckman's going to outpace the lot of them, and Luckman's in for a great try. Oh, great try. Well, Luckman finished off that move magnificently, but the great effort really came from Ricky Walford, as you'll see in the replay. Now here we go with the scrum win by North Sydney. Spina puts it in. Now Spina gets to the ball, and Walford in from the wing. Steadied, shot through the little gap, and he had the fullback to beat at this point, and also coming in from the wing on the far side, but he got it away beautifully there to Tate. Tate gets it across to Luckman. Luckman outpaces Docking, chased there by young Wakefield, but he just had enough pace to get away, and that's it on replay. A great try by Chris Luckman. There he is walking back to his spot, and we have Ricky Walford to attempt the conversion from, once again, that pretty acute angle right out near the touchline, and as you can see, he's placed it on the Cronulla Sutherland 22. Now if he can put this one over, a different ball game. In fact, it'll equal the scores. North Sydney with 2 tries, the first by Casey, that last one by Luckman, against a try and 3 goals by Cronulla. So this could be the equaliser for North Sydney, but it's a very difficult kick for Ricky Walford. Takes his time about it, strikes it fairly well, it looks good, and it's straight between the post. A great goal by Ricky Walford. Oh yes, he's no wonder he's one of the great heroes for North Sydney followers. The score's now level. Cronulla 10, North Sydney 10. And we've got a football match in our hands, and I am beginning to believe that not all of these rules, because we haven't seen one of them actually operate so far, and that is a player taking a kick from general play on the full behind his own line, being able to resume play from the 22. We haven't seen that happen yet. But I think this 5 metre rule is working. It's opened up the game. We've seen some great moves by both sides. This is young Docking. Looks for a gap up the middle. McKinnon couldn't quite get to him and is eventually put down by Hillier. Play is midway between the North 22 and the halfway line, with the scores levelled at 10 all. Howard Jansen trying to take it up, well put down by Dunbar. Don't forget that Alan Burns is still off the field for North Sydney, so they're 1 man short. They've got 10 minutes in the sin bin. Merlot has made it to the North 22. In fact, he's just inside, so the tackle count is negated. And trying to get into position for a pass was number 4, David Harris. Now, the ball has been reefed back. Referee says that's not on. We'll have to have a scrum. Got a replacement player coming on for... So Steele off, and number 21 coming on to replace him is Steve Robinson for Cronulla. Robinson, in fact, is a third grader. It's interesting that they've pulled a man up from third grade. This is the moment now. Cronulla have North Sydney pinned down, going hard with it. Merlot, was he over the line? Referee comes across to have a good look at it. Says no, he didn't quite make it, but he's so close. Dummies going everywhere. North Sydney will wake up to them all. From the dummy half position was Hatch getting it away quickly. It's loose and caught out there was David Harris. Well wrapped up. Cronulla have lost about 5 metres. Running with it now, Dean Carney has barged his way through a couple of tackles. No tackle count, of course, when they're in the North Sydney 22. Cronulla going backwards a little bit. If they just straighten the attack like that, this is the replacement player, Steve Robinson, number 21, trying to take it up. This halfback Wakefield gets it out nicely, and then it's a long one that nobody wants. Getting to an Armstrong. Armstrong will go over and score, almost untouched in the corner. Well, a strange try, and it perhaps should never have been scored. Tony Armstrong going in there, and he was walking back with the ball, but in fact it was scored, and that's all that really matters in rugby league. But it, as you'll see on replay, North were just caught napping here. That's young Robinson trying to take it through, number 21 for Cronulla Sutherland. And it'll eventually come to Wakefield for Cronulla, the halfback. There he is, and he sums up the position. Will gets it out beautifully there to Jansen. Jansen with that long pass. There was nobody there, but it just bounced up beautifully for Armstrong. And Armstrong in there, chased across by Tate. Tate had just had no chance to get to him. As we come back live, it's another 4 points for Cronulla. I've got a funny feeling we're going to see a really big scoring match today. Armstrong to attempt this conversion from just a few inches outside the North Sydney 22, right out on the touchline. And this will give you an idea of what Armstrong sees when he looks up, has a look at those posts. With the famous old Bob stand in the background, transported from the Sydney Cricket Ground to grace an almost equally famous North Sydney Oval. Armstrong has the ball placed very low, not much angle there. Strikes it well, but it's sailed out to the left of the post, no points. However, with the previous try, which Armstrong scored, already on the board, the scoreline now reads Cronulla 14, North Sydney 10. Well, if nothing else, the 5 metre rule and the players having to stand back both from the play the ball and the scrums, I think is working. It's opening up the game. There's plenty of running and plenty of time for the sides to mount great attacking situations. And for the tackles were two of them, were Mitchell Cox and Ricky Walford. Walford, you see there, remember, he's the winger. He's got, in fact, has managed to dive on the loose ball. I was about to say he's roving all over the field trying to pick up a loose ball, and as I said, it didn't happen. Trying to go through with it, Brockwell. Brockwell is put down on the Cronulla Sutherland 22, playing it to Wayne Honeywood. Gets it to McKinnon. McKinnon still trying to struggle his way through. Was bought play inside the Cronulla 22, so once again the tackle count stops. Honeywood decides he'll have a little sprint from dummy half, made a metre or so. Right in front of the Cronulla posts. Honeywood playing it here to Jennings. Jennings also runs from dummy half. And that you'll have to get used to. Whether it's good, I don't know. But every time the dummy half runs, he's good for at least 2 to 3 metres. Honeywood tries it himself and gets it to McKinnon. McKinnon back inside to Hillier. Hillier about 5 metres at the very outside out from the Cronulla post, playing it to Tate. Tate with a long one has found halfback Spina. Spina dodging and weaving, trying to get through a little gap, but it closed very quickly. But they can keep plugging away like this literally all day. McKinnon struggling for the line. Oh, geez, so close again. We'll get up and play it to Honeywood. Honeywood with a long one out there wide to Cox, and that's left behind by Brockwell. Dived on by North. Going for it was Tate, but the referee is now saying that ball went forward. So the penalty going to Cronulla Sutherland, awarded about 10 metres out from their own line. And they'll be looking for the line on the hillside with a little bit of a breeze behind them. This is fullback, at least 5'8", I should say, Greg Nixon, the skipper. And he's found touch just outside the Cronulla 22. This is Robinson, number 21, came on to replace Glenn Steele. getting it to Michael Porter, who scored that one and only, or the first, I should say, try for Cronulla early in the game. Lots of long passes by Cronulla. They're not afeared about throwing that ball around. But with this breeze behind them, I would have thought there'd be a little bit more kicking involved. Well, that dust cloud going up is the true indication that as docking takes off for Cronulla and is well taken by Honeywood, a true indication of the very hard conditions out there and the fact that there's so little grass on the paddock. Ball out beautifully here to David Harris. Gets it, flips it back inside to Armstrong. Armstrong with another nice one, finds Gardner. Gardner's got support, finds Nixon. Nixon was going well, eventually put down by Ricky Walford. Last tackle coming up against Cronulla. Now that's an interesting one because Cronulla just managed to get it inside the North Sydney 22. That was David Hatch who took it up. So no tackle count again. Referee giving a penalty now. That one against North Sydney for holding the tackle player down. The penalty awarded about 20 metres out from the North Sydney line. Cronulla will just look for the line, and of course when play resumes they have until they lose the ball or something else happens, they have unlimited possession. Referee not happy where the ball was placed for the tap, and the referee is now awarding a scrum because he had a go and it didn't work. He tried, so that's a foolish error by Cronulla. Put in by Spina. And gee, I think getting to it first was Wakefield. An argument about possession, but the referee in the meantime says it doesn't matter, fellas, I want to put in again. Spina will win this time for North Sydney. A little bit of a gallop to try and get the show on the road, and got the ball away nicely. The referee Gocher just warning Cronulla to get back that 5 metres. Spina getting it away well and gets it out nicely there to Tate. Tate is swamped. Play is still dangerously close to the North Sydney line. They'll have to be very careful not to drop this one. McKinnon tries to take it up. He's made a gain of about 2 metres. Honeywood looks around to see where the runners are. Spins at the other side and finds Hillier. Hillier almost gets through the tackle of Jansen, but Jansen puts him down. Last tackle coming up against North Sydney, and they're just inside their own 22. Long driving punt. It'll find touch. Oh yes, great kick. Now that's brought play way up to a position only 3 or 4 metres outside the Cronulla 22. So North away from the danger spot. And a chance now for them to get back into the Cronulla 22 and see if they can't put another try on the board. It's 2 tries apiece. The difference is goals. Cronulla have 2 and 2 up on North Sydney. They've scored 3 and Norths have only managed to score 1. Dean Carney, who's been a little bit of a source of trouble for North Sydney all day, bustling his way through tackles. Got the ball back to Docking, and Docking now to play this one just outside the Cronulla 22. A loose one, who's going to get to that? Walford, I think, has got to it first, but the referee in the meantime has called for a knock-on further back. Over it gets back to position. We'll have a scrum pack down about 25 metres out from the Cronulla line to be fed by Wakefield. And that really did not get into the tunnel. The referee calls it back, and I was amazed he didn't go for a penalty against North Sydney. They were striking for the ball even before it got in there. Look at the legs going in there. The penalty going to Cronulla. And it was pretty obvious why. He's talking there to Honeywood and saying, you've got to wait till that ball gets into the tunnel, mate. You're striking for it before it gets within a metre of it. Penalty awarded to Cronulla. And a chance for them now to gain some very valuable distance on the grandstand side. Well, they didn't make all that much distance, but at least they've brought play down to just short of the halfway line in their own half of the field. Robinson takes the tap and gets it away to Merlo. Merlo's caught. Play is just crept into the North Sydney half. Robinson a dummy half. Dummy that goes past him and eventually picked up well by Gary Walker. Robinson looks around to see where the runners will come from. Spins at the other side this time. Out beautifully to Nixon. Nixon trying to get it back inside and didn't. Found that time Carney. Carney going well, gets it back to Wakefield. Wakefield is stepping and dodging and weaving, throws a long one, and it goes straight into the arms of Don McKinnon. And McKinnon has saved the day for North Sydney. Right out on the touchline, but just inside the North 22. Here's Walford from the dummy half. Cronulla are watching him so carefully. A penalty going to North Sydney again for Cronulla, creeping up inside that 5-metre line. They're watching Ricky Walford, not now giving him more than about a half a metre to move. They know he's got the acceleration, and if he can ever burst clear, no one will run him down. Walford takes the line kick, and that's brought play up to about a metre or so short of the halfway line as McKinnon takes it up. Tackled underneath by Michael Porter. Over the top to make sure he went down was Robinson. This is Hillier. Play now inside the Cronulla half. Long one out wide there to Dunbar coming through on the burst. North running a little bit crab-wise, not making a great deal of forward progress, but they're just probing, just looking for the gaps to start opening. Here's Alan Burns back in the paddock. Served his 10 minutes in the sin bin. Cox going to go in nicely, and then Brockwell looking for the pass to come his way. No way. Honeywood from dummy half has brought it up. Last tackle, no, it's been touched. They're inside the 22, so the tackle count negated again as Luckman tries to take it up, gets it back beautifully. They're outside the 22 for a moment, so that could have been interesting if they've been caught there. In that case, there's a change over to the other side. If you push back outside the 22 by the defending team, the changeover occurs and the defending side gets the ball back. North Sydney crashed their way yet again into the Cronulla 22. Honeywood gets it to McKinnon. McKinnon nicely where it comes to, no, it doesn't go to Cox. It's loose and it's dived on there by Michael Porter for Cronulla. In the meantime, the referee has called for a knock on further back, so we'll have a scrum pack now and about 6 metres out from the Cronulla line. Cronulla 14, North Sydney 10. And what appeared to be shaping up as a big scoring match suddenly has started to tighten up. Tate gets back to Cox. Cox with a nice one to Brockwell. Brockwell's got Walford on his outside. He's got the ball. Walford, he's hemmed in. No, he gets around one tackle, and Walford's in for a great North Sydney try. Oh no, the referee has said no try. That's obviously on the report of a touch judge, and we should have a look at that one and to see if we can pick up what did happen. Here it is on replay. It's a North Sydney ball from that scrum. Little goes to Spina to Tate, and then nicely across to Brockwell. Brockwell, here's Walford at the bottom. He seemed to take that all right. Did he put a foot into touch? It must have been the only thing we couldn't see the touch judges. We pick it up live. Bad luck for North Sydney. That would have levelled the scores yet again. Now, Cronulla are trying to get it back outside their own half. Playing the ball is Paul Merlo to Robinson. Robinson, no, that's a good strong run, but he's now into touch. He went a little bit too far with the ball. Scrum to pack down now about 3 or 4 metres short of the halfway line. This is Spina feeding for North Sydney. Referee Gocha not happy. And it's a North Sydney ball. What a strange one. It rolled out the other side of the scrum, but never mind. It's a North Sydney ball. This is Tate. Tate bursts his way clear. Finds Brockwell. Brockwell looks for support on the other side. He's got Luckman there. Luckman's flying. He gets away from docking, and he's over. Try number 2 for Chris Luckman. And let's level the scores with the kick to come. Gee, that was a bit of a shame, wasn't it? The Ricky Walford try that was disallowed earlier. Here we go on replay. Scrum being fed by Laurie Spina. Rolls out the other side of the scrum, most unusual. Spina gets it to Cox. Then Cox away to Tate, number 4. He's caught, but gets it to Brockwell. Brockwell's calling for Luckman, draws the fullback and gets it beautifully to Luckman. And there's Jonathan Docking chasing him. Also Armstrong across for the chase. But back live, here's our hero, Chris Luckman, with his second try of the game. Out wide, of course, it's levelled the scores, but it leaves yet another very difficult kick for Ricky Walford. He landed the last attempt from virtually the same spot, right on the 22 and about that far in from touch. So if he can do it once, perhaps he can do it again, and if he can, it'll be North Sydney in the lead. But we'll wait and see, because this is a very, very difficult kick. So 3 tries now to North Sydney. It's in this department. They're just falling down a little bit, but you can't blame Walford. That's a great attempt again, but I think it's just outside to the right of the post. No points, but a great effort by Ricky Walford. Score remains now Cronulla 14, North Sydney 14. The halftime hoot has gone in the background, and that's it at halftime. I think a very fair sort of a score, because both sides have put everything they've got into this. I think there's some great football coming your way in the second half. Cronulla 14, North 14 at halftime in TV Match of the Day. Both sides now back on the paddock for the second half of Video Match of the Day, and as you can see, it's a tied situation. The home side, the North Sydney Bears, on 14, Cronulla on 14. A very interesting first half, and there's no doubt in the world that the experimental 5-metre rule has worked. We've seen a lot of open play, some great moves set up by both sides, and the only rule, the new experimental rule I should say, it's hardly new, as charging through a great run there by young Peter Esty for North Sydney. Walford puts his head down, tries to get under the tackle of David Hatch, put down. Now, the only experimental rule we haven't seen in operation is the player taking the bomb behind his own line and play resuming from the 22. Maybe we'll see it in the second half. Here's Jonathan Docking, Cronulla fullback, pull down well, and will play this one midway between his own 22 and the halfway line. Good break by Tony Armstrong, goes back towards the left wing and put down. Good tackle over the top by McKinnon. He'll play it to Docking, runs from dummy half, tries to get inside the tackle of Honeywood, couldn't get away from him. Play is inching its way back towards the halfway line, centre field. Not a great deal of kicking in this game. It's one of the more interesting things. Loose ball, it's going to be going for it was Chris Luckman. Couldn't quite get his fingertips to it, should have tried to boot it. And a great dispute about who has possession. In the meantime, the referee said there's a knock on further back, fellas. We'll have a scrum back down. Very close go there. Chris Gardner, the player getting to his feet, finally got hold of the ball. And Luckman, with a little bit more luck, pardon the pun, if he could have just got a boot to that one, maybe he could have put it over the line and raced through for a try. Wakefield gets the ball away nicely here to fullback Docking for Cronulla. Good tackle by Mitchell Cox. Running wide, Michael Porter runs into a lot of trouble over there. McKinnon first in to help put him down. McKinnon rolling around the background. Porter knock mark goes straight up the middle, eventually stopped in his tracks by Nigel Tate. But Cronulla now have burst well inside the North Sydney half, and they're looking for that 22-metre line. Yeah, they're about 3-4 metres short. Getting to his feet, Dean Carney. Dummy half Armstrong. Nothing you could do about making any forward progress from that position. Carney. There's one of the first kicks you've seen. Now that one won't be taken behind his own line, so play just resumes with Casey trying to run it out for, at least not Casey, the North Sydney fullback. Is Luckman dodging and weaving, and eventually almost got away from the tackle, but he was covered beautifully there by David Harris. It's a loose ball. Cronulla will get to that one. Oh, it's kicked ahead by North Sydney, so a little bit of scrambly play, but the ball is now picked up by Wakefield. Tries to run it back from just inside the North Sydney half. Some solid forward work out there. Gardner gets to his feet, tackled by McKinnon. Dummy half David Hatch almost gets through the tackle. Eventually Wayne Honeywood, who's doing a lot of defence for the North Sydney Bears, puts him down. This is Paul Merlo, 3 in to stop him. And North, it's obvious, been told, get in and cut off all of these attacking moves as quickly as you can. Don't let them build up to anything. So they're trying to cut off the ball very close to the ruck and the play the ball situations. This is Porter. Didn't quite make the North Sydney 22. So it's a changeover. North Sydney back in possession. That's what Porter was trying to do, get into inside the North 22. Caught in possession now, Laurie Spina, just inside his own 22. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if North suddenly surprise Cronulla and start kicking from here, because there's only Docking anywhere in a rear guard situation. The entire Cronulla side up as one line. So North Sydney unable for the moment to get outside their own 22. Honeywood from dummy half throws it back, and here is the kick. Comes from Spina. And finally getting to it, Armstrong. He's looking towards fullback Docking. then decides he'll go up and take the dump himself, and it had to be a dump. Brockwell was there waiting for him, plays it to Docking from dummy half, caught and dragged down from behind by Simon Brockwell. Playing it to Robinson, number 21, who got rid of it nicely. Comes back here to second row forward Gary Walker, almost gets the split down the middle, and finally getting to him was Laurie Spina, first man in at least, and Cox also in for the assist, and Cox in for that tackle, putting down Dean Carney. Cronulla being hit early and hit hard. 5'8" Nixon. Last tackle coming up against Cronulla. They'll have to do something. They've got to crash over that line. You can see the 22, and diving forward is Paul Merlo, and he's done it. Meantime, it's a penalty going to Cronulla because of the North Sydney players all creeping up inside that 5 metres. Penalty to Cronulla means injured North Sydney player there is the lock forward Graham Jennings. He seems okay now, the first aid man from the Bears side, running on to see if he needs attention. And in the meantime, Tony Armstrong has decided he'll have a shot for goal from that last penalty from just outside the North Sydney 22. It's a drawn situation. The score is North Sydney 14, Cronulla 14, and this could put the Sharks in front. It's not a difficult kick, and it's worth the try with the scores locked like that at 14 all. It's about 6 metres at the very outside to the left of the uprights. The breeze has died away to almost nothing. He's got a good look at the posts. He's already landed 3 goals in this match, Tony Armstrong. This could easily be number 4, and if it is, the Sharks go back into the lead. Armstrong is steady and concentration, hits it pretty well. It's straight between the posts. Another 2 points to Cronulla Sutherland from that penalty goal by Tony Armstrong. Cronulla 16, North Sydney 14. Now Armstrong having a field day with the boot, and he's now taken his score for the year to 160, his total rather for the year to 160 points, which almost certainly will have him ahead of Steve Gearin of St George as the season's leading point scorer. Cronulla doing it the hard way, running it out from their own line. It was Armstrong, in fact, who took the run out. And play now, as Howard Jansen plays the ball, is just outside the Cronulla 22. Big Carney tried the burst that time, couldn't quite get away with it. Cronulla, you see the way North Sydney are getting up that quickly. Tackler that time, number 4, was Nigel Tate. I just wonder, in fact, they're not cribbing a little bit on that 5 metre. The referee Gocher is keeping an eagle eye on that. This is Paul Merlo trying to burst his way up the middle, got rid of it eventually to corner. This is Dean Carney getting it away nicely over to David Harris. Harris is swamped there, and his arms were pinned. No way he could get rid of the ball. The last tackle coming up against Cronulla. Harris a bit slow to get to his feet. In fact, that was the changeover. It was the last tackle. Ricky Walford passing it infield. Comes to Mitchell Cox. Running wide, gets around one tackle, off down the right wing and through another tackle, but eventually caught from behind by Tony Armstrong. Will play it to Walford just inside the Cronulla half. And North Sydney have got to get another couple of points at least back on the scoreboard to keep themselves in the fight. Oh, no one can hand that. Eventually picked up by Brockwell. Referee said that went back. No knock on. So as the ball is played back to Nigel Tate, who in turn gets it away beautifully here to Hillier. Hillier's caught. And a penalty going against Cronulla. Their backs, their outside backs, all caught, creeping up miles inside the 5. So the penalty to North Sydney awarded midway between the Cronulla 22 and the halfway line, and quite naturally it'll be a shot at goal coming up by Ricky Walford. So we've certainly seen some attempts at goal, penalty goals at least, and Walford's just the boy to try and put a couple of extra points on the board for North Sydney and have those scores draw level yet again. That gives you an idea of the distance and the angle. He's midway between the Cronulla 22 and the halfway line, and he's about 15 metres in from touch. Now Walford's had not much of a day with the boot, but that doesn't mean anything. Every kick bar this one has been way out on the sideline, and this one is the easiest one he's had all day. Rockall, covered in the famous North Sydney dust. Hits it fairly well, and it's straight between the posts. 2 points to Ricky Walford, another 2 points to the Bears, and the scores are levelled yet again at 16 all. Well, anyone's football match in video match of the day at North Sydney Oval, 16 all, and the ball being placed by Tony Armstrong. Gets play underway again for the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. This is another replacement player, Peter Esty, number 19, has come on for North Sydney. Walford from dummy half. Thought he saw a gap opening up, but quickly across in cover defence was Chris Gardner. Played away by Honeywood. McKinnon, meeting of the big men out there, and he's crashed through a couple of tackles and has brought play up to within about 6 or 7 metres of the halfway line. Dummy half, Honeywood again runs, gets rid of it back inside, but the Cronulla defence was swarming up and North Sydney really had the attack cut off at the pass. They're, however, fairly close to the halfway line. There's the kick now, racing across for it is Docking, waits for the ball to steady itself and picks it up. He's looking for the halfway line if he can possibly get there, but it was Brockwell who's had a great day in cover defence who chased him across. He'll play it to Chris Gardner. Gardner from dummy half decides on the run, step through one tackle, eventually well taken there by Gary Dunbar, and McKinnon in for the assist. Playing it to Dean Carney. Will he run from dummy half? Yes, this seems to be the pattern under the new rule. A lot of running from dummy half. Loose one, may have been scooped back by Carney. The referee says no, but in the meantime, it's a penalty going to North Sydney. That was for an infringement of what was basically a chevron. We've got more replacement players coming on. We've got Fred Teasdale is now on for North Sydney in the number 28 jersey. Look up who's going off in a moment. And there is one other player gone onto the field, but Fred Teasdale now on in the 28, and I think you might find that Wayne Portlock is also on for North Sydney number 20. In the meantime, we've got this penalty which could put North Sydney in front. Ricky Walford, who's landed 2, and this by a long way is the easiest attempt he's had today. He landed the last one beautifully from something of an angle. This one is at the very worst in line with the right upright. And if he puts this one over, North Sydney hit the lead again. Not a bad try. And straight between the posts again. Goal number 3 for Ricky Walford. North hit the lead, 18 points to 16, but I think there's a lot more scoring to come in this game. North 18, Cronulla 16. Well, on a reasonably cold day at North Sydney Oval, though the sun is out, it's still pretty chilly. The crowd really getting their money's worth in this game. There's been some great running and some great backing up. And most people there in what could best be described as mid-winter gear, but they're being warmed up purely and simply by the pace of the game. Play now is just outside the North Sydney 22, North in possession. Going through with it is hooker Honeywood. Tried to get rid of the ball, no chance of doing that. Here comes a kick from Cox, which will go straight into the waiting hands of Docking, who juggled it, but it's safe enough. He's crossed his own 22. He looks for the halfway line. Gee, there was a gap almost there, but he's caught side on by Nigel Tate and also by Errol Hillier. Playing it to Carney. He likes to run from dummy half. Here he goes. As he runs, he was looking out the corner of his eye to see if he could find anyone coming up in support. He'll get up and play it to the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks skipper, Greg Nixon. Nixon with a wide one. This goes through the hands of Wakefield, and then beautifully out to lock forward Howard Jansen. Play just inside the North Sydney half. Running wide once again was the lock forward Howard Jansen. And under the real rules, if you like, a rugby league, there'll be a lot more kicking, not too much in this one. Cronulla's starting to go on the rampage now. They've found many gaps straight up the middle. Last tackle coming up against them, but now they've crashed into North Sydney's 22. Going to ground was Gary Walker. He's telling North Sydney to get off him, playing it to Docking. Docking around the edge there to Michael Porter. Porter is up to within about 10 metres of the North Sydney line. He'll play it to Steve Robinson. Gets rid of it quick, smart. Out nicely there to Paul Merlo. Merlo thought about getting to his feet. He thought he wasn't marked, and North showed him that he was. Wakefield, a loose one, and beautifully picked up by Brockwell. Brockwell has got luck, but it's a caught. In fact, it was Cox he found coming through. Honeywood getting it back there to McKinnon. McKinnon tries to crash through one tackle. No way he could do that. He's eventually put to ground by David Harris over the top. Well, Cronulla blew what could have been a possible try-scoring opportunity a moment ago. They threw a couple of wild passes, and the last one picked up by Brockwell, who in fact has possession again, getting to his feet. Cox swings a wide one out there, juggled there by centre Nigel Tate. Gets it away beautifully here to number 19, Peter Esty, and he's got a flying Ricky Walford, but it's called back, apparently gone forward. Well, Sydney supporters not too happy about that. And that took everyone by surprise, but referee Gocher was right on the spot. So we'll have a scrum packed down on the halfway line with North Sydney just clinging for the moment to a very precarious lead of 2 points, 18 points to 16. Cronulla ball, Wakefield gets rid of it nicely to Nixon. He's caught. Wakefield, in fact, will now be the dummy half and play just inside the North Sydney half. Loose one, North back in possession. Clumsy play by, or have they? No, Cronulla managed to regain, but of course it was knocked on by the Cronulla player, so we'll have another scrum packed down. It's about 2 or 3 metres inside the North Sydney half, roughly centre field. Noticed Alan Burns when he packed into the scrum there for North Sydney, seemed to be rubbing his arm. He may be carrying a little injury. This is Laurie Spina around the edge of the scrum base. He was looking for a gap out wide, and in fact he's finding them. He's burst through on a couple of occasions. Spina to play the ball now to Nigel Tate. McKinnon puts his shoulder into it and knocked a few of them flying, and has brought play up now at least 5 metres inside the Cronulla half. Rockball, dumming, looks for a little gap down the middle, finds Luckman. Luckman spotted a gap, he's off and flying. The cover defence is there, he's being chased by Wakefield, bounces through one tackle, flips it away beautifully to Cox. Cox is also looking for support, and he's found Esty. Esty is going to ground. No, he gets rid of the ball. It's a knock-on, I think, by Honeywood. Referee spotted it. Well, that was mounting up to be what could have been one of the best tries North Sydney have scored this season, but just a little bit of bad luck in the final stages of that move. Knock on, and this crowd of 2,060 at North Sydney Oval most certainly getting their value for money today. It's been an exciting match from the opening whistle. Wakefield for Cronulla from the edge of the scrum. Oh, that's what you'd call a tackle. Nigel Tate in whack, cop that. Cronulla forwards, if anything, inclined to run pretty wide. But there's a special reason for that. They're trying to get to midfield. That was Howard Jansen, who took so long to put down. Now, North Sydney have got to be so close to being offside now that it's not funny. They're up so fast in defence. And that'll be the measuring stick for referees. Players simply cannot get up that quickly. Another great Nigel Tate tackle, that time on Paul Merlo. He's tackling like a champion today. Wakefield spins it out wide. He's found Armstrong going well, but apart from Ricky Walford coming across in defence, there were all sorts of other players there to stop that move. Play now is just inside the Cronulla half. And these players at the end of this game will know they've had 80 minutes of rugby league, because they haven't run as much in this game, I'm sure, all season, because this extra room they have to move with the defence back 5 metres means that we're seeing a lot of backline, a lot of backline movements and an enormous amount of open play generally. Loose ball, and that's picked up beautifully by Tate, and Tate was almost away that time, but he was finally collared there by Wakefield. That, yet again, Cronulla have thrown away possession. Walford squirming around there, eventually helped to be put down by Jansen and also by David Hatch. Back inside nicely, and North Sydney have found Burns coming through on the run. And play now is getting fairly close to the Cronulla 22. Hillier at dummy half. Spins it wide. This is Spina. He's caught there by Paul Merlo, the first man into to tackle him. And the dust is just rising from North Sydney Oval. North now have finally crashed into the Cronulla 22, courtesy of Chris Luckman. This is Honeywood, who actually bounced off one of his own teammates as he tried to run through, playing it to Luckman. Luckman spins it nicely to McKinnon. McKinnon barging his way forward, tackle underneath by Paul Merle, by Gary Walker. Look at North, they're all up in a heap, but they've spun it wide. Cox is caught. Get up and play it to Honeywood. They're about 10 metres short of the Cronulla line. This is Honeywood, swings it wide again. That's a loose ball yet again. How many times have we seen that happen? And diving onto it was Paul Merlo for Cronulla Sutherland. Now, it's amazing just how many times that has happened in this game, where the team with unlimited access to the ball in the opposing team's 22 have just thrown the ball away. Penalty going to Cronulla Sutherland. That was pretty obvious. Tony Armstrong was trying to get up. He was put down in no mean fashion by North Sydney. Still has the ball, and he takes the line kick. And he's raised the flag about 23, 24 metres out from the Cronulla line. 2 points the difference. North 18, Cronulla 16. But because this game has been played in the greatest possible spirit of open rugby league, anything can happen here. Some heavy hits in there. Number 28, Fred Teasdale, on for North Sydney. Played back there by Robinson, and he's found Merlo. Merlo's caught and put to deck by Hillier. Play is midway between the Cronulla 22 and the halfway line. Don't see much of that, but there's the kick, and it's going to bounce nicely for Casey. I think no one's run away from him. Going to chase back towards his own line. He's got Chris Luckman in support, but there was no way he could think about getting a pass over. There wasn't the fullback, I'm sorry, there was Esty. North Sydney giving it everything they've got. They're now working play up towards the halfway line. They're midway between their own 22 and the half at the moment. This is Luckman, who's had a great day, scored 2 tries, and he's been in everything today. A very hard man to stop usually, but today Cronulla have had a great deal of trouble trying to contain him. Played away by Spina to Cox. That's the second row forward, Alan Burns. Now he's gets it back nicely to Hillier. Hillier's got Ricky Walford there, gets it to Walford. Walford's bounced, however, into the waiting arms of Howard Jansen, and Armstrong also there to help put him down. Play still midway between the North 22 and the halfway line. Kick, which I think will go into touch on the full. Yes, it has, and so we'll have a scrum pack down on that spot. Play getting up towards the halfway line, but basically between the North 22 and the half. Referee Gocher ordering this scrum. There's the score, nothing in it, as you can see. North 18, Cronulla 16, and both sides will just have to watch it, because Cronulla more inclined to simply give away possession in the most strange situations. It's a North Sydney ball. Spina is always dangerous running from the base of the scrum. That time made a good 5 or 6 metres. Cox feeding it away nicely here to Jennings, who in turn goes. It's dropped, and Porter picks it up for Cronulla Sutherland. As I was saying, both sides guilty of dropping the ball a lot. There's no real excuses today. Played away by Merlo for Cronulla. This is lock forward Jansen. No gaps out there, and he's very much contained. Cox, one of the tacklers, and the other tackler was Brockwell for North Sydney. This is fullback Docking. Has almost made it to the North Sydney 22. There's Wakefield, a dummy half. He's over the 22 now. For a moment there, I think he was thinking about going for the line, but at least Cronulla back inside the North Sydney 22. Now, it's a case of whether they can hang on to this ball under the old 6 tackle rule. Players simply aren't used to having it for long periods of time. That was Robinson feeding it wide. Wakefield as the floater, and it finds Tony Armstrong wrapped up there by Ricky Walford. Cronulla giving it everything they've got, going hard, Dean Carney, and once again it was Walford who chased him through, and also coming in from the side, Jennings. Carney's been a hard man to stop all day for Cronulla. Cronulla still in there, giving it everything they've got. That's the 5'8" and skipper, Greg Nixon. Porter from dummy half. Is he over the line? He's so close. He's been pushed back. Porter gets to his feet, and North Sydney, you don't know quite what's going to happen next. Now, Cronulla are going to spin it. This is Walker. Gary Walker, number 10, second row forward for Cronulla. Darting, Docking. Goes for the line. Saw it there, but it was eventually wrapped up by Don McKinnon. He's going to play it to Robinson. Robinson the other side. Good move. Merlo goes hard for the line. Play now. They can see the North Sydney try line at such a danger. Here's a half a chance for Cronulla. Going hard was Jansen. He was pushed down and stopped there about a foot short. Is this a try coming up? Now over the line went Robinson, and the referee is saying yes, that's a try. Well, it wasn't the most spectacular try of all time, but at least Steve Robinson has scored it, and that's all that matters. So we'll see this on replay. Now, it's the next move that's the important one. Just watch for Steve Robinson, number 21. He's got it, he's wrestled, and he's over the line and puts it down, and it was right under the eyes as we come back live of referee Gocher, no mistake about it. So Cronulla now hit the lead with the attempted conversion to come. So we'll wait for the kick by Tony Armstrong, and it's a pretty simple one, as you can see. He's about 6 metres or so to the right of the post, and he's got it for Tony Armstrong. That looks a wide enough gap. He shouldn't have any trouble with that one. So if he can put this one over, it'll be a 22-18 lead for Cronulla. I don't think he's going to miss. So then we're in for some real excitement, because North Sydney have shown they can score tries, and they'll come back fighting mad. If he puts this one over, they'll come back anyway. They'll score again. Tony Armstrong, he's landed 4 goals already. This could be number 5. Left foot to the ball. Gee, that tell you what, it's just sneaked through, and that's all, but it's there. Another 2 points. Scoreline now reads Cronulla 22, North Sydney 18. Now, as Ricky Walford places the ball for the kickoff, can the mighty Bears come surging back. They're down 4 points at the moment. Now they've got time up their sleeves, Cronulla, but they can't really afford to try and just bottle the game up. This is young fullback Docking, caught in possession, and play is just outside the Cronulla 22. They'll have to hang on to the ball there. It's the danger spot now around the 22 line mark, the 22 metre mark. Cronulla are still giving it everything they've got as Michael Porter takes it up. Dean Carney, I'm sorry, it wasn't Porter. Played away nicely by Wakefield. Wakefield has found Merlot. Merlot gets it back, but it's a bad pass along the ground. Scooped up there by David Hatch. The referee's called for the knock on, and rightly so. Certainly was knocked on, so we'll have a scrum packed down midway between the Cronulla 22 and the halfway line. Waiting for Laurie Spina to bring the ball around and feed the scrum. This could be interesting if North Sydney win. They're in a great attacking situation. And she goes, that's going to be a North ball, all right. The referee wasn't particularly impressed. And that one going against Spina for feeding it, as you can see, is giving a clear indication that he actually turned that ball back into the second row as he fed the scrum. So the penalty going to Cronulla. And that means that they can get off the hook and kick for distance on the grandstand side. Now that'll raise the flags, well, nowhere near as far as they'd hoped. It didn't even quite make the halfway line. But at least Cronulla have possession. Monty Porter tossing it back in field there to Steve Robinson, who scored that last try. Running wide and tied up there by Wayne Honeywood. Played just inside the North Sydney half. Played away by Wakefield and Nixon. And then backing up there was the second row forward, Gary Walker, number 10. Wakefield with the long floater. Porter out wide with the backs. He thought about throwing a pass, then realised the most important thing was to stay on the field of play. You can see how close he was to the touchline. Merlot from dummy half to Wakefield with a nice pass out there to Nixon. Nixon's got away from one tackle. Looks for a gap, not there. Good round the ankles tackle by Wayne Honeywood. Docking to Wakefield and then across to Carney. Carney's kicked ahead, everybody racing for it. And Spina's the only man at home for the moment. A loose ball. Also over there was number 20 on for North Sydney, Wayne Portlock. Dropped into the fullback position. Well, that was a little bit too close for comfort for North Sydney. Brett Teasdale packs into the scrum now, number 28, also a replacement play. That's going to be a Cronulla ball. This could be danger for North Sydney. Wakefield from the dummy half, at least from the base of the scrum, gets it to Nixon. Nixon contained. He'll play this one. They're only about 10 metres out. Dummy half is Jansen. Jansen has made about a metre, no more. Now, what have they got up their sleeves this time? Cronulla very happy to throw it around and probe for the gaps. This is Gary Walker. 10 metres out from the North Sydney line to Dean Carney. Will get up and play it to Michael Porter, son of the great Monty Porter, former St George Stewart. And Michael Porter's going for the line, all so close, yet so far. He's about a foot and a half away from the North Sydney line. He scored one try already, Michael Porter. Wakefield darts. He's going hard for that line himself. He thought about struggling his way through, but then thought better of it. Players still trying to barge their way over rather than just simply use the ball. Carney from dummy half. He's got the strength. I think he's done it. Is he over? Yes, the referee says that's a try. Dean Carney from dummy half simply used his ball-like strength to barge and push his way over the line. Another try for Cronulla, and now they've gone ahead that little bit more. See it coming up on replay. Dean Carney is number 3. He does this from the dummy half position. Here he comes in, pushes the other player out of the road, and trying to stop him there unsuccessfully was Simon Brockwell. As we come back live, the try scorer, Dean Carney. Another 4 points for Cronulla, and the attempted conversion to be taken by Tony Armstrong. Tony Armstrong has kicked 5 goals. Also scored that try. Tony Armstrong knows if he can put this one over, maybe that's the end of the penny section for North Sydney. North have been in it up until that last try. That last try by Carney, I'm sure, has sealed the game, and that's all there is to it. But you never know. They could come back, and probably the most interesting thing is, can they come back? Tony Armstrong from just inside the North Sydney 22. Not much of an angle. He should be able to push this one over. Once again near the right-hand side of the post, but the flags are up, so it's goal number 6 for Tony Armstrong, and the score now, Cronulla 28, North Sydney 18. All right, that's too big a margin. I have a funny sinking feeling if you're a North Sydney supporter for the Bears to get back, but maybe they could score another try. I think they've got it in them to do so. So now it's a case of whether North can just get possession. That's the crucial bit at the moment. Because Cronulla have shown today that they've got some exceptionally fine line kickers, and they'll be kicking for the line more than anything else on that 5th tackle. Using their big men. Once again, it was the big winger, Chris Gardner, trying to wrestle his way through. Referee awarding a penalty to Cronulla, and that one against holding Gardner down, against the North Sydney player for holding Gardner down. And they've been doing it too much. The player in question there was Fred Teasdale, who came on as a replacement in the second half. And it was pretty obvious he was. Why, I don't know, because his time is fast running out for North Sydney. Kick for the line that's going to raise the flag about midway between the Cronulla 22 and the halfway line. And tapped there by Robinson. Wakefield nicely to Gary Walker, and well put down. Good tackle underneath by Alan Burns. He'll get up and play it to David Hatch. Runs from the dummy half. Just that little bit of extra time. Draws one man. Gets it away beautifully there. Referee coming across now for a penalty going to North Sydney. And that one was a vague sort of a shepherd against Cronulla. So Ricky Walford has the ball for North Sydney. Now he'll just be looking for the line on that far side, from which point, of course, they're inside the Cronulla 22. And if they can get another converted try, it's going to make the scoreline look a lot better. And B, it's going to please the fans. Let's see what they've got going for them. Don McKinnon takes it up. Oh, gee, for a moment, he's thinking about a one-handed pass. They're inside the Cronulla Sutherland 22. Goes to Spina, who was looking around for someone other than Hillier to come through, because there are a couple of yawning gaps. There's a Spina again. Made about 3 metres, or about 10 metres short of the Cronulla line. McKinnon back inside nicely here to Alan Burns. We'll get up and play it to McKinnon. They're about 8 metres short of the Cronulla line. McKinnon runs around the edge. He's trying to push off tackles as he goes, but he made a gain of maybe 3 metres. They're that much closer, about 2 metres out from the Cronulla line. Now, they've got a big man who can barge his way over. Spina, he's not the biggest man to try it, but he's trying to get himself clear to throw the pass. He'll play the ball to Alan Burns, right under the... He's not marked, so Spina goes for the line himself, and he's over. Well, good thinking and quick thinking there by Laurie Spina, getting to his feet to play that ball, realised he was unmarked and just darted forward, interestingly, to score under the post. We'll see that on replay. Good thinking. Little Spina, here he goes, struggling his way forward. See him looking around to see who was up there as in support. Now he gets to his feet. He's not marked, and clearly he can run. So over the line he goes for the easiest of easy tries. And more importantly, as we come back live, that's going to leave a very simple attempted conversion for Ricky Walford. That puts an entirely different complexion on the game. Here's Ricky Walford lining it up, as you can see, from right in front of the post. There should be another 2-pointer for North Sydney. Just hit it well, straight between the posts. Goal number 4 for Ricky Walford to convert Laurie Spina's try, and the scoreline now is Cronulla 28, North Sydney 26. A big scoring game, and I have a feeling that under these experimental rules, that's what's going to happen. A lot of room to move, a lot of time to get moves set up, and if most of the rules are adopted, I think rugby league is going to see all sorts of point scoring records beaten. Walford takes the kick off. He's right down on his own line. He's well taken, chased through there by Chris Gardner and put down. Played away by Teasdale. And North Sydney have got outside their own 22, coming into dummy half as Honeywood, playing the ball as Hillier. Gee, if they, all they need is a break, and they've got this game wrapped up. Cronulla. But on the other hand, all North Sydney needs is a little break and get down into that 22, and who knows what could happen. Play now is just inside the North Sydney 22 as Nigel Tate plays it. Kick ahead by Cox, which is going straight over there to Tony Armstrong. Looks for the fullback, finds Jonathan Docking backing up, any little fella. He's up towards the halfway line, centre field. Getting ready to play it to Armstrong. Obviously he's going to run from dummy half, I think, and there he goes. Steps and he's through. He's through 2 attempts at tackle. Eventually, the final one by Mitchell Cox puts him down. He plays it to Docking. Docking out wide. Looks for a few runners to try and forwards their way down the far left wing. Excellent court in possession that time. Play now is midway between the North 22 and the halfway line. Comes across to Chris Gardner. Good pass from David Hatch. Cronulla getting dangerously close to the North Sydney 22. This is Howard Jansen. They're in fact crashed their way. No, is he going to be pushed back? If he does, no, I was about to say if he was pushed back over the 22, it would have been a changeover. The referee is telling North to get back the 5 metres, and now Cronulla have it with Porter. Running wide, gets away there from Hillier, and he's so close to the line again. Porter scored a good try in the first half. Cronulla doing their best to work their way closer and closer to that North Sydney line. Getting to his feet and playing it as Merlot. From dummy half, it's second row forward Hatch. You can see the corner post, they're getting very close to the North Sydney line. Hatch getting ready to play this one. Cronulla getting caught very quickly and striking for the ball North Sydney. That's good thinking actually. This is Hatch caught, put down there. First tackler in was Spina, and Walford in for the assist. Again, so close to the North Sydney line. Merlot running wide. And once again, the cover defence too good for McKinnon, number 11, probably the first man in. And now getting up to Mark Merlot as he plays this ball. You can see the North Sydney try line is Carney, who scored a try from a similar situation. He's done it again. Carney, sheer strength, running from the dummy half position. Saw that the defence was a bit thin out wide and knew he had the strength and the weight to bust his way over, and he did, to score his second try of the game and to seal this game for Cronulla. Here it is on replay. He's such a big fella, Dean Carney, for a centre. He could easily fit into the forwards. He's played there, in fact, and through goes Carney. Everyone had a go at him. First to have a go was Spina, then over the top you saw McKinnon and Hillier. No one was able to stop him. So another 4 points for Cronulla means they go to 32 against North Sydney's total of 24, and we have this attempted conversion by Tony Armstrong to come, and he's already kicked 6 goals today, so if he gets this one, even if he doesn't get it, he must already have zoomed to the lead in the season race to see who's going to be the top point scorer for the year. He's landed 6 goals. This could be number 7, and also he scored a try. So Tony Armstrong from that position just inside the North Sydney 22. It'll be a good kick if he can land this. Very acute angle. Looks reasonable, and it's between the posts. Oh, what a great kick by Tony Armstrong. Goal number 7. His personal tally is enormous, but that's the most important point score there. Cronulla 34, North Sydney 26. 60 points, would you believe it? Kick through, and who's got to it? Beautiful backing up here by Teasdale to take that pass. Caught Cronulla, and it's a loose ball picked up by Spina. Spina's looking for a bit of a gap down the middle. He's also looking for a bit of support. Got the ball away. It's been kicked forward, in fact knocked forward, as North Sydney looks as though they could go in for yet another try. It wouldn't make any real difference to the final result of this game now, because Cronulla most certainly have it sewn up. Waiting for the scrum. It's a Cronulla Sutherland scrum win. Wakefield. Just running it out and taking their time. They've got it sewn up. Wakefield at dummy half. Play about almost up to the Cronulla 22. Second row forward, Hatch. He's taking his time about getting up. There's no great need to hurry. A little bit unhappy, I think, about the tackle by Teasdale. Cronulla just taking it up. One out now, being crashed to the deck, Howard Jansen. There's no need for any fancy stuff now. They can just play out the game and take their time. As Wakefield gets it away nicely. North Sydney, by I'll say something for them. They're in there trying in the dust bowl. Let's look at the dust, you wouldn't believe it. Number 19 is Andrew Eddinghausen and gets the ball away to Nixon. Nixon looking around for support. He's just that ball and juggled it, and it's knocked forward again by Docking, who throws it back, but of course the knock-on's been called, and we'll have a scrum packed down pretty well right on the North Sydney 22. Full-time Hooters gone, and so North Sydney have lost on their home paddock. Cronulla Sutherland have run out the winners, and under the new rules, a very interesting game in more ways than one. There's the scoreline. Cronulla the winners, 34-26, and I think the 5-metre rule has opened up the game. We've seen lots of tries scored today and some exciting backline action, and that's what rugby league, when it's all boiled down, is all about. So on video match of the day, not exactly a thriller, but certainly some great action, and Cronulla Sharks have run out the winners in the second last competition round of the 1984 season.
Show him the courage, show him the skill, what it means to be part of a team. Someday he will.